One.
Hello, I'm doing the intro. Hello,
Yes,
guys. My name's Kickstand. This is episode 6 of the Battlefeed podcast. Um, it's been a little while since we had a podcast. We finally have some time to sit down and chit chat about all things Battlefield, and the timing couldn't be better because there was a lot of news this week as far as Battlefield 5 post beta is concerned. So today we have special guest Shaddix, Shaddix Films. And then we have our gracious host, as usual, Mr. Punisher,
What is
TFS
happening, everybody?
the video guru.
Yeah, I try.
So what do you want to do first, Pun? Let me check the list here.
Go ahead and we'll go ahead and let Shadox introduce himself, let him run down what his content is and all that.
Sounds good to me.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Shadox. I make YouTube content regarding Battlefield, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 5, going in depth on some of the mechanics, how things work in Battlefield, as well as giving you guys tips and tricks. And then on the side, I also like to look at history. I'll post news updates, and then I also do some weird stuff like cinematics and all that good stuff. That's not too often, though. So you can go check me out at youtube.com/ShadoxFilms. I'm sure there's going to be links in the chat. And then I stream here on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, except for today because I'm here. So that's at twitch.tv/ShadoxFilms. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks for bringing me on.
Sweet. You got anything, Pun?
No, just let's roll right into it.
Let's get into it. All right, I'm fine with that. So it looks like you wanted to start off with the Battlefield 5 post beta analysis, especially topic number 1, the rescheduled release.
Yeah.
They pushed back the release date about a month-ish?
Yeah, basically.
Not too far.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about it?
As long as the game's better, cleaner, and they have their ducks in a row, I'm 100% okay with it. Because we've all seen what happens when a Battlefield game comes out before it's ready. So
I'm Battlefield 4.
Yeah, cop. And honestly, just from a competition standpoint, you've got Call of Duty coming out next week. They were going to be in the thick of it. It's about to be a tough couple months for games right now.
Well, what's really interesting is now that they've had to push back, I've actually heard from a lot of developers saying that they actually can breathe a little bit now. I know that a lot of them were putting in a lot of overtime hours, and so from the human perspective, it's good on them. They get more time to actually, go smooth with it. The old adage, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Make sure everything's done right instead of trying to rush it. But in addition to that, we're also seeing more time for this increased communication. All these dev talks that we're going to talk about, all the blog posts, all this stuff is now available because they're not just solely focused on pushing the game out, which I think is a really good thing.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Yep.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I just want to make sure that the game is going to work. And when they put out the product, that it's going to be a finished product. So anytime they push back a date and that's the reasoning for it, I'm all for it. And, Kick, you made a great point that it's going to be fighting with some of the biggest AAA games, in the same area there in October, so moving it back to November to me is a no-brainer.
And you know what? Another side effect may be, since it's going to be releasing closer to the holidays, there may be a last-minute marketing push for TV advertisements, online advertisements, and so we may see more people end up picking this up for Christmas. More parents may be like, "Oh, hey, I see this new Battlefield game. It's newer than Call of Duty. Maybe my kid will like it." I mean, I'm all for having easy targets on Battlefield, but I do think that any addition as far as newcomers to the Battlefield franchise, it's always a good thing.
Totally agree.
Yep, I'm there.
Get these new fans in.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Moving along, next topic was the marketing strategy post beta. Topic number 1 for that's the dev talks, which have been, in my honest opinion, severely needed and welcomed and super informative. Like, they checked all 3 boxes for me, considering how quiet everything was up to the beta and even post beta. There was a lot of people, especially on Reddit and Twitter, screaming about, where's the communication? DICE is known for talking to the community, letting everyone know that they're going through the feedback, they're listening to the feedback, and they're going to act on the feedback. And we had like a good month where it was radio silence, and then we just had this flood of information, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. It's 180 degrees from what we were seeing prior to the beta, and even right up into after the beta, and the community was screaming. It was like, we need more talk, we need more interaction, we need more communication, and I think Mitri, Braddock, and the devs over at DICE, Natalie and Tigger especially, I mean, they stepped up to the plate and they've hit a freaking grand slam, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what's really welcoming is that they're not just giving the normal PR speak. They're not just saying Battlefield 5 is the best game ever, but we're not going to talk about why, which we've seen even in the past. DICE has done that. A lot of other companies, that's all they do. They go to the events like Gamescom, E3, or just before their release, they'll push out this big marketing stuff. They'll try to make it look like they're trying to have a serious conversation, but I think this is the level of transparency, communication, and details discussed within these dev posts and the dev talks. It's unprecedented. I cannot think off the top of my head of another gaming studio that has gone to this level of depth when it comes to their pre-release communication. So it's really welcoming. It's helped answer a lot of questions in the community. It's helped address a lot of concerns. And it also shows that they are listening to the community when it comes to things that people have concerns about. So, for instance, the cosmetics, we all know there was a lot of controversy regarding the historical authenticity of some of the things that we saw. And they said, okay, we understand your concern. We're going to dial it back a bit. Here's what we're doing, and then let us know what you guys think. And so there's an actual room for an in-depth conversation. That's really, really promising. It's, like I said, it's something that we don't see other gaming companies do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that's. Oh, I'm sorry, Pun. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I already spoke. Go ahead.
All right. I was going to say, the dev talks in particular to me have been what's impressed me with the communication. Well, first of all, the production quality is fantastic. What they've done is next level in my opinion, and I have to applaud DICE for being able to go in. I don't know if it's something they have planned for a while, but it seems to me it was kind of okay, we really need to step up our game and come in and do something that I think the community is really going to embrace. And so being able to go in and set up a room like a studio with the equipment that they have and the production, being able to open up almost about as transparent as they can be, and just telling us exactly what they're working on and what they want to change, and kind of show you what their vision is for the game. In particular, yesterday's was impressive. If you have not seen it yet, go watch episode 3. I think it's episode 3 is the latest one. Yeah. And watch the segment with Drunksy and the white maps that he was doing the weapons testing on, and all that stuff, the trajectories, and how he was showing how the gun recoils are going to work from this point on, and all that. That was impressive to me, and I really enjoyed that. I was like, this is what we need right here.
It also allows the wider community to see just how much passion is behind this game, how much of the development's life is being poured into this game. Some of us who got to sit in with the press reveal before the actual reveal live stream, we got to see that passion. We got to see Daniel Berlin, Ryan MacArthur, and one other, I believe Alex, talk about the game. And that's what sold it for me, was seeing how much passion these guys actually had for the game. And then the reveal stream came around. There was just nothing there. But now we're starting to see it again. People are actually able to understand how much the developers are investing into this game, how much they think it's going to succeed. And that's it's really interesting, and I absolutely love the direction they've gone with it.
Ditto.
Yeah, I agree.
I almost wonder if all of these dev talks and everything are, if they are a direct product of all of the criticism they got through social media, from Reddit, from Twitter, or if this is something they had planned all along. Because to have radio silence for like a month and then to have all of this information not just kind of thrown out there, but it's presented amazingly. They tell you the thought process. This is the feedback we heard. This is how we're acting on it, and then this is why we're acting on it. Like they're especially when like a lot of these tweaks they're making to like the attrition system, health regen, ammo. Like you can see A, B, and C, their thought process for all of these changes post beta. I don't know. They've really started acting like DICE again. When they were quiet for so long, it just felt very awkward. Honestly, from pre-beta to post-beta, especially after that first the announcement stream, that didn't feel like DICE to me at all. It was like Bizarro DICE, because it was that presentation was not very well pulled off. I don't know how else to say it, but that it left a lot of people in the community scratching their heads, especially longtime DICE fans that aren't used to that kind of conversation with the community. It was very muddy. There wasn't a ton of information. You had to go to outside content creators to get anything substantial as far as information.
Well, even for us outside content creators, it was really damn difficult to actually make something with depth when we're getting almost the exact same information that everybody else is getting. We get maybe a hint of something, or we'd get someone saying, "Oh, we'll be talking about it soon." And that's pretty much all we had to go on.
Yeah. I would love to be a fly on the wall on some of those marketing.
Oh, absolutely.
For the last 2 months, I would love to be a fly on that wall.
Yeah. All right. So what about Reddit?
Oh.
So I actually know two of the mods for the Battlefield V subreddit, and they are absolutely loving it. They're loving the increased communication between the community managers, so they have a direct line of communication with Braddock and Mitri, and I think even Adam. So they're able to more easily coordinate these AMAs, know when these posts are going to go live so that they can make sure everything works fluid in their subreddit. And I think the biggest thing of all is that the Battlefield V subreddit has created a positive place to go. Whereas if you go, and I do not recommend that you go to the just Battlefield subreddit, because that place is just a toxic shitstorm. But the Battlefield V, they've really locked down. They make sure that things stay on topic, that while there is room for criticism, it needs to be constructive. People, what you don't see in the Battlefield 5 subreddit is people going, just, this game is garbage, I'm not pre-ordering. If someone thinks that something is bad, like attrition, for instance, then most of them will give a explanation as to why and how they think it could be better. And I think that's something that is a really good step forward in the community.
Yep, I agree.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, there was a good, before the mods for our BF5 kind of pumped the brakes on a lot of the I want to say less like what's the word I'm looking for? They were critical, but they were not critical in a inappropriate way. They were just like, screw this game, blah blah blah, until they got the lockdown on that. A lot of us that enjoyed the game really didn't have a forum to go to and say, hey guys, this is what I like about the game, blah blah blah, without just getting shitstormed by downvotes. People were getting brigaded so hard in that subreddit. It's like night and day. I'm almost glad that our Battlefield hasn't been so proactive, so you can see how it used to be versus how it is now when it comes to Battlefield 5 subreddit. Because it's a lot more conducive to being very constructive with your feedback about the game, rather than just saying, this game sucks, I'm canceling my pre-order, blah blah blah. That subreddit has come a long way. It was super toxic.
Yeah.
Super toxic.
What do you think about the Dan Mitri's doing kind of a post weekly debrief when they release all this information? on Reddit. I looked at it last night, and to me, like you were talking earlier, the feedback is very positive. It seems, and there is a lot of information and discussion. I think you can get from that. I'm stumbling here. That thread there in the subreddit, and I mean, I think it's great. I was reading it last night, and it seems to me like it even gets a little bit more in depth there, and I think the community's pretty much opened up to it.
Yeah. I think, especially you're seeing a lot of the more hardcore people in the community that have stuck around, that are very much appreciating a lot of the communication we've been getting for the last few weeks. It's been really good.
It's forced me to, well, it hasn't forced me, but it's encouraged me to go back to Reddit and actually get in on it a little bit. Absolutely. I mean, prior to, I would say a couple weeks ago, I haven't been in, active in Reddit for a long time, other than very, very occasionally I'd jump in there. But just being able to go in and have constructive conversations and discussions about the game is refreshing. And I'm glad that DICE and EA have decided to not only use their own social media and their own websites to get this information out, but to also go to where traditionally people have been very negative about them, and to open up and give this information to the Reddit community and allow them to comment on it. And I think that's changed the hearts of a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's really interesting for me personally as a content creator. I will often go to these subreddit threads where people are having a discussion about something in particular. Like, again, I keep going back to the example of attrition because it's one of the most common conversations that I'll see. But I will actively search out for people who have different viewpoints than I do, who disagree with me. Maybe they have some points that I don't fully empathize with, or I didn't see it from their point of view. And so I will try to go out of my way to find outside sources. I will talk to other content creators, and then I will try to have a actual in-depth discussion. And I think it's one thing that I take pride in, is being able to show objectively what's going on. Instead of just offering, some content creators will only offer their point of view and not really go into depth on the other side, and then you have the same people on the other side coming the other way. It's interesting, but Reddit is a great source. I really do feel like, and so the weekly debriefs in particular has really made my job easy, because it makes it one place where I don't have to search through 30 to 40 Reddit threads. I can just go to that one and be like, oh, okay, these are what they said. This is the source. Here we go. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they're sticking a lot of those important posts, so they're always at the top. As soon as you log onto the subreddit, there's your important information. You can start there and then start, going through the community threads. It's very nice.
Yeah.
It's not buried in with some of the other, the white noise.
Yeah, and the mods over at that subreddit are always on top of things, making sure that everything's high vis and that everything is communicated beforehand.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, very good. Now, something's impressed me that they have done is the DICE Twitter takeover. This is something brand new. I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
And so what's y'all's thoughts about that?
Oh, I absolutely love it. I love it.
Yep.
There's so many like inside jokes that go around. They're playful, they're interactive, and they're actually showing off what they do. I mean, having Florian talk was absolutely fantastic. He is very good at the game. He was competitive, competed ESL, I believe. And so he's insanely good at the game. He knows the inner workings, and he knows what questions actually matter as far as weapons go. And so he's going to kind of ignore the people just say, why aren't you nerfing the STG? STG is too OP. Whereas then he's going to focus on, okay, how does the rate of fire have an impact on, you know, the time to kill and the time to die? Is there a network issue that was in the beta that it may be impacting the time to die? By the way, I theorized about that and they confirmed it in the last dev talk. So, because that was a big thing. Everybody was complaining that the SDG was OP, and a lot of it was the time to die issues, netcode issues, like Battlefield 4 suffered with. So hopefully those will not be there at launch. They know they're there. They've said they're working on them. Hopefully they'll be able to get it through. But yeah, the Twitter takeovers, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely.
Yep, I love it. I appreciate that they would allow the devs to go there, and it almost seems like they're willing to share a little bit more information that they might be comfortable with. But
well, what's crazy is the devs, and even in the latest dev talk, they're showing their in-house screens and engines, which is something that 99% of the time, all those pictures are always under NDA. You can never share a picture of the actual programming engine. You can never show white box environments where you do your testing.
Yeah,
that is something that you almost never see. And so for them to be sharing it so freely is absolutely incredible. I mean, the stuff that was on the dev talk yesterday with Florian showing off the weapons testing, the bullet trajectory where he was testing penetration and recoil values. You could see all the different variables, pitch increase per shot, yaw increase per shot. And so that was really fascinating for me because I like going into those mechanics. And so that's absolutely awesome. It's something that you almost never see.
I think that's an important point to bring up too. Is the good thing about these Twitter takeovers and these little snippets that they're showing the community is, like, I think a lot of people think that to develop a game, like if a community member complains about something, they just adjust a couple numbers on a spreadsheet and then throw it out to the community and see, okay, well, how do you like it now? No,
well,
there's
I know
a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, perfect example of that, and I think we're going to be talking about it later in the podcast. Is the player visibility?
Yep.
How we saw how they're constantly adjusting that, and it's not just this simple switch.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, especially on the engine side, is a total rework of how it's being handled currently or was handled previously.
Oh yeah.
And with these last couple recent dev takeovers, with these snippets about vehicle physics, how vehicles are going to interact with the map now, like there's stuff that they're doing to the Frostbite engine, which was already an amazing engine, and they're just wringing out that little bit extra, that little bit more, and it's all these small details that are adding up to, like, it's stuff that as Battlefield players we're kind of used to, like, buildings just crumbling.
Yeah.
but like when you see the thought and the physics that are going into it now, it's almost like playing Battlefield again for the first time, because there's so many minute details that they're getting right, like when the tires are popping and suspension, like that vehicle they showed riding through the desert, and the way the suspension was reacting when he slammed on the brakes, there was like creaking from the brakes, and just these small little details that just really put you in the game.
Or the fact if you drive over a static car with a tank, the car actually gets crushed.
Yeah, it collapses, the tires blow
that's
out.
Such a small thing that, you know, has probably bugged a lot of us, but we really don't give too much thought, and now it's just absolutely revolutionary.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of turning into Grand Theft Auto-esque levels of detail as far as, like, the environmental interactions you can have on every map now. Like, if you can see it and think it, you can probably do it.
Oh yeah,
that's really cool. And it'll look right. Like, it'll look appropriate.
I'm sorry, I was typing. Trying to get the bit rate down so people can watch it. I dropped it down to 3,000. I don't think I can get much lower than that.
Yeah, that's getting a little low. The only well, you are streaming at 1080p, so Hedgel Drummer, if you are still watching, try dropping the quality down to like 720, and it should be good. You can click the little cogwheel in the bottom right hand corner of the stream.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, we should have quality settings.
Yeah, no, because I got it pulled up on mine right now.
Yeah, it's on there for me.
All right, so we're gonna move on to attrition, I guess.
We'll talk about let's talk about the post beta tweaks And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to concentrate on all the ones that's got the community in an uproar here the last month or so.
We only have like another half hour, man. I don't know.
Yeah, and attrition is probably, I would say attrition, set aside the whole historical female argument, I think attrition is probably the one that I've seen that's gotten the most love from social media.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So anyway, so they've done a lot of changes to attrition. They put out a big blog post about it. If you haven't seen that, go to EA's website and look up the attrition system Battlefield 5 blog post, and you can read all about the changes that they've done. But it appears to me that they have listened to the community, and they have really, I don't know, catered it away from being so hardcore to, giving, people more resources when they come out of spawn at the get-go. And so I'm looking, I don't know. Personally, I love the old attrition system. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't really have too many problems with it. They could have maybe given you an extra magazine or something like that at the get-go, but overall I liked what they were trying to do with it. So what do you guys think about it?
Honestly,
I was going to say, if you want to start.
Honestly, I think I would rather save judgment when I can actually see how it plays. That way I can see what metas are actually built from this new mechanic. The way it seems like they're trying to push it is to satisfy the people who have the notion and the feeling, and you know what, that's their own opinion. So it doesn't matter if I believe it's right or wrong. That's how they feel. But the running off to a supply crate, they're calling it a fetch quest. I can understand it. It does take you out of the action. It does slow down the pacing a little bit, and so it does seem like they're trying to make it to where if you do these things, you'll be at an advantage, but not slow down the pacing for those who don't want to do it. It's an interesting balancing act, and I really do want to wait and see how it actually plays out, how it will drive the multiplayer meta, what people will actually end up doing before I say that it's good or bad.
What about you, Kick?
So I was a fan. I won't say it that way. I actually didn't mind the attrition system the way it was implemented in the alpha and the beta. Coming from the old school BF games like BF2, if people think the current iteration of attrition in BF5 is harsh, they should have played the earlier BF games where it was even more hardcore. Like there was no health regen at all. Never mind like 50-point health regen or 30. If you got hit, if you didn't heal yourself or get healed by a teammate, you were screwed. Having said that, I do. Go ahead. Sorry.
To build on that, it's to touch on what Plague Beast is saying here in chat. I really think that players who started Battlefield with Battlefield 1 are going to struggle the most with Battlefield 5. Because Battlefield 1 was such a diversion from the core tenets of Battlefield. And so now that we're seeing a massive swing in the other direction towards more centralized, more core Battlefield, that it's going to alienate a lot of players. People are going to struggle with it. And so I really hope that that the players can adapt. But it's going to be interesting to see what the long-term player retention is for Battlefield 5 versus Battlefield 1.
I agree with that. Battlefield 1 was such a departure from what other Battlefields, not even just what they were about, but how it was executed as far as like gameplay mechanics. You kind of started to see that change with Bad Company and then BF3 and BF4. But BF1 swung the pendulum a huge direction in the more run and gun one-man army, throw all the explosives. Like it was a lot faster paced BF game than we're used to, which is another reason why I think attrition is so big for BF5. I really think the developers want to slow down the pacing, so you have this attack and defend mentality where it's not just you're rotating flag to flag, attack. If you have those secondary objectives near or around the flags for health, for ammo, people are more likely to stick around and defend a flag because they know they're going to have ammo. They know they're going to, if you can't rely on your squad mates or your teammates, it'll help your sustainability long term, where you just can't run around the map in one-man army, everybody.
Yeah.
I love the thought of attrition. I actually like the tweaks they're making because they're small, but they will have a big impact on gameplay. One of the things I didn't like was, especially in the beta, as soon as you spawned, if you were me, the first thing I did was ran to a ammo depot.
Yeah.
Because you knew you're going to need those 1 or 2 extra clips. I don't think they need to spawn you in with like 248 rounds like they did with BF4, but they can give you a couple extra. There's a happy medium there. You don't give somebody 2 clips and say, okay, go fight a battle. Like I don't think that's super reasonable. But I'm also glad that they started out at that end on the stingy end. This is how it'll play. If it's this stingy, we can dial it up versus going from 5 to 11 to 1 to 15. Like you start at a baseline and then you make small adjustments from there. And everything I've been seeing about what they're doing with attrition, especially with health regen, the ammo, the health packs, all of these small little adjustments that kind of it inches it a little bit closer to what people are expecting from Battlefield. I'm anxious to see how it plays out. I'm kind of in the same frame of mind. I'm not going to give an opinion on it yet because I haven't played it. But from what I'm reading, they sound like good changes.
Yeah, and I can understand why attrition is being implemented, and that is to return to the core of squad play to make those who run with a squad more advantageous than those who lone wolf. You can still lone wolf. It's just you're going to have to be a lot better at the game in order to succeed at it. But some interesting side effects that I do see a lot of the attrition haters, I'll call them. Some of them might not actually be haters. Some of them have actual legitimate concerns. But there are a couple of things that really that attrition really brings to the table. One, it puts an increased reliance on your accuracy. So you're going to have a higher skill ceiling because if you have a higher accuracy, you're landing more of your shots, you're killing more of your targets, you are less affected by the ammo attrition system.
Yeah.
Those of you who have good positioning will have less of an effect on the health attrition system because if you can win the firefight earlier by having good positioning, you're not going to get hurt as much, and so you're not going to have to worry about not regenning health. Those with good movement, again, health, same as before. Those with good situational awareness, those who can realize which combat or which firefights to actually engage with. And so do you start shooting at a guy with your SMG when he's 40 meters out, or do you try to position yourself and move to and engage a little bit closer up where your SMG will have better accuracy? These are a lot of the wide scope tactical mindsets that players will need to have in mind, and it really does raise the skill ceiling, at least in my opinion.
I agree. That's one thing coming out from BF4 where you could use almost every weapon in every situation if you knew when to how to burst fire that weapon and how it handled. Like you could use an AEK and laser beam somebody across the map. BF1 kind of took that and turned it on its head to where, you know what, you can use this automatico, but it's only going to be really, especially towards the end after the weapon balancing, it's only going to be useful within like 30 meters. Anything out, they gave all of these different weapon variants their own engagement zones to where you can use these guns outside of that, but you're probably going to get yourself killed. And I like that they're doing that in BF5 as well. Like you said, if you're running around with that SMG, are you going to, now that you know ammo is at a premium, are you going to take pot shots across the map at somebody, knowing you're A, probably not going to kill them, B, give away your position, and C, you're wasting your own ammo. Like, I really like that. I like that weapons they all have their preferred range of engagement where they're just going to beat other guns if you know what you're doing with them. Whereas Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, I mean they had carbines which kind of ruined weapon balance to a certain extent because they were good at so many things. You had the PDWs and the ARs, but the carbines were a hybrid. They were the kind of utility gun of BF4, and BF3 was a whole nother game when it came to weapon balance, just because burst fire was such a huge part of that game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take people putting in thought into how they play. And I think that's why it's frustrating a lot of people. You just can't zerg around the map and hold down left click. I mean, that's not going to work for you anymore.
No, I agree. I think people are going to have to play, play a lot slower than what they're used to playing, and be a little more methodical about what they want to do. especially when they're moving around with their squad. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's the vision of what Dice wants to do with the game, and it's a revert back to what we're used to seeing 6-7 years ago, and so I'm looking forward to it. I do have their quote out of the blog where it discusses what they specifically have done, but they said that, and I'm quoting off of the EA's blog on attrition. They said it's worth noting that the attrition system has been dialed down compared to how it was in open beta. They said where some players were concerned about tedious ammo hunts. So for the final game, we're increasing your amount of ammunition when you spawn in. The max amount of ammo will be larger, and you'll start with a medical pouch. So I think that was one of the big concerns too that they were worried about, or that players were worried about in general, is immediately not having anybody to heal with, especially for a lot of, I guess, medics that weren't really playing their role. So they were at least now given the option that if something were to happen, they could heal themselves right off the get-go. And so, I'm with you guys. I'm kind of a wait and see. I don't know how it will affect the speed of the game and how we can how we'll see players play with the new attrition system. But I mean, if it's worth trying to appease some of the community concerns, I mean, whatever, let's try it. If it doesn't work, then I mean, they could always kind of revert back a bit. We'll see what happens though.
That's one thing that Dice is good at is like especially after launch, let people play for a couple months, and they'll pour through all of that data, see how people are actually playing the game, and then adjust from there. Not just, it's so hard, especially with game balance and game mechanics. It's so subjective. On a spreadsheet or written down, a game mechanic can look amazing, but then you see how players are actually interacting within the game, and it can play out totally different.
Oh yeah,
it's extremely subjective. No matter what, you're going to piss off half the community. So.
It's a good great point.
You just try to
it's a great
razor's edge. All right, how many people can we appease and have them be on the same page before we balance it too wrong in one direction or the other?
Yeah.
Glad it's not my job.
I'm telling you,
I'll pay the $60 and just give my opinion. But that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, it definitely is.
All right, so let's talk about vehicles.
Just vehicles?
Yeah, well, I mean,
and weapons.
And weapons, but but let's go into vehicles first. We had already touched on it a little bit, but I know that we saw some footage yesterday and the day before about the suspension, which is a first. I think I've never seen it before, and so, what are your thoughts about the suspension in the vehicles? Because I think that's pretty cool.
It's a nice immersion factor. And apologize if my mic is low right now. I will talk closer to it. So it's a nice little immersion factor. It's not going to be something that you'll pay attention to all the time, but when you do notice it, it's going to stand out, and I think that's going to be a really, really interesting. As far as all of the ways that the vehicles interact with the environment now, it's really cool, especially driving a tank over, like a static car that was just placed on the map. That's absolutely phenomenal to me. The one caveat that I will have with the suspension, and if you watch the dev talk, and instead of watching the suspension, if you watch the crosshair of where the turret was pointing, it looks like there was a little bit of a delay between the suspension and where you were aiming. I don't know if that was an artifact of the video. I don't know if it's because things are still in testing, or maybe it was just a little bit of an optical illusion, me trying to watch two different spots on the same video. So that'll be interesting. There may be some complaints about some missed shots due to a little bump in the terrain. I don't know. Again, we're going to have to wait and see.
Do you think that the suspension will kind of alleviate that effect? Because I see it a lot in tanks. So if you're driving around in tanks in first person and you hit a bump, I mean, you're getting thrown all over the place. Do you think that'll be minimized now because of the suspension?
Maybe. Again, it's going to be, I want to see how it works.
Yeah.
It could go in either direction, like you said, because you have that suspension now. That might be what's adding the delay. Because before with the tank, especially in like BF4, BF3, you hit that bump, the tank was rigid, so your cannon kind of pointed, it reacted right away. Now that you have a suspension that's absorbing that and then reacting to that, that's what might be flopping that cannon around after the fact. So I'll be anxious to see how they handle that once you get your hands on it.
So speaking of the turret, I was not happy about this decision, but I want to hear what you guys think. What do you guys think about the slower turrets, the more realistic turret turning speed?
I don't know. I really don't have a. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it. Didn't play it enough to really try it out that much because I really concentrated playing on Rotterdam and being an infantry guy. But I mean, it seems to be, I guess, more realistic per se. And what little I did play, once I realized what it was doing, it didn't really bother me. So, that's my opinion, really.
One thing that I did notice that changed about my playstyle in vehicles, I'm not a vehicle main by any chance, but I do take the time if I feel that I could be beneficial to the team, I will hop in a tank. But one thing I did notice that it changed about my playstyle is I was much more defensive and cautious with how I position my vehicle and where I was in respect to teammates. I always wanted to make sure that I had friendly teammates around me so that I couldn't get surrounded. Because if you have an assault player or a support throwing down mines behind you, you're screwed. Because it's going to take you 10 seconds to turn your turret around, or you could try to hop out and guess what? Now he's going to steal your tank and drive off. It to me, when I first heard someone suggest slower turret speed, I was of the mindset that realism is not the same thing as fun. Yes, it's more realistic, but at the same time, it also will be frustrating for a lot of tank mains or people that just play in vehicles in general, because they're going to be used to those faster turret speeds than before. Now, one thing that does help kind of balance this a little bit is that the tanks were a lot beefier in the beta than they were in the alpha. In the alpha, they were just made of paper mache and they'd fall apart as soon as one assault came up to it. But also, B, the assaults had less weapons that they could actually destroy a tank with. If you ran with a Panzerfaust, you only had 2 shots of the Panzerfaust in the beta, whereas in the alpha, you had 5 Panzerfausts. And you could select dynamite.
It was stupid.
It was
so
ridiculous.
you were just a one-man demolition crew.
So it's kind of a balancing act. I think I would rather see the turret speed bumped up a little bit, because there were a lot of times where I got frustrated over the fact that it took ages to turn that turret around.
Well, there will be now. That's part of the meta, is that each vehicle will kind of have its own turret speed, and so it'll give the players the choice of choosing, okay, well, this vehicle's a little bit more responsive, faster turret speed, but it may have less armor. It makes the player kind of consider another layer to the meta of that vehicle and to the overall meta of the vehicle game in general. So I don't know. Maybe is there going? This is another thing I don't know. But in the vehicle specializations, are they going to have a perk that changes, that gives an upgrade to the turret so it will go faster for that vehicle?
It's a good possibility.
That could be,
yeah.
I'll say this as someone that had, like between Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, like thousands of hours in tanks. I like it because everyone's going to have the same turret speed. You're not going to have these DPI switching guys that are. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous in Battlefield 4. You could just whip your turret in every direction. It's a good way. If I'll say this, if they're gonna make tanks really strong, it's a fair way to balance them. That way they can't defend themselves from every attack. Like you said, if you have a support player that's being intelligent, flanking, and then getting behind you and putting dynamite on you, he should get rewarded for having the balls to do it and doing it appropriately by taking you out. Whereas in BF4, you could just whip your tank around and just shoot them. Like,
I had forgotten how fast the tanks were in Battlefield 4, but until I went back, and because I've been playing mostly Battlefield 4 for like the last month,
yeah.
and I had forgotten how fast those tanks were.
Oh yeah.
Well, and like as someone who did a lot of tanking, I had DPI settings on my mouse specifically for tanks.
Yep. Same here.
So I had my soldier sensitivity and then my vehicle sensitivity. That way they were the same. They were consistent between the two. So it didn't, muscle memory.
Yep.
But the fact that everybody across the board, no matter their DPI settings, are going to have the same turret speed is going to take some. It's going to make you play a lot more intelligently in tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if they're weak and they're paper mache and they still have the same settings, that's a problem. But they were pretty strong. The only thing that sucked about the beta is you didn't have a map that showcased vehicles. They were all tight maps. You didn't have a lot of room to really let yourself breathe and be that guy that can be really effective from a distance, which is what tanks are kind of for. They're the support for the infantry. They're not supposed to be on the front lines with them. So I'll be anxious once we get to see some of these bigger, more wide open maps that aren't so urban. I think you're going to see a lot. And like you said, Pun, the small tanks, the light tanks are going to have quicker turret speeds.
Yeah.
So you can have that heavy tank and pack a punch, but you're going to have to be extremely careful with your tank. It's gonna change the meta for vehicles. It's going to take a little while for people to adjust.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, if they're going to copy anybody, who else to copy but World of Tanks? I mean, it's a tank game, and they're kind of going for that same tank feel. So,
yep.
We'll see.
Awesome.
It's going to be frustrating. A lot of people are going to get killed in tanks because they just can't rely on that 5,000 DPI, turn on a dime kind of shenanigans. But makes it a lot more realistic.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about specialization. So that's another kind of a touchy subject that people had. I think the big argument with specializations was that they were worried that when you go upgrade your gun, that there was no negative side effects. At least there wasn't communicated that there was negative side effects. But it appears that DICE is saying now that there actually were negative effects. It was just really hard for us to tell based off of the UI. So the recent, with the Dev Talk yesterday, they actually showed some, actually no, they didn't, but they actually tweeted it out post Dev Talk. They showed some footage where they selected an upgrade on a weapon, and in the right side of the bar, it showed where it negatively affected other aspects of the gun. So what is your thoughts with what they're doing now with specializations? Do you think it's enough?
So I think the specializations, it serves a lot of purposes, both good and bad. I'm still not fully on board. I think I would have rather seen the return of an attachment system, but the specialization system, what it does is it prevents players from making idiotic decisions when it comes to their attachments. Things like putting a muzzle brake on a DMR, plus an ergo grip, for example. I mean, those two don't belong on that weapon, and they don't belong together. Well, excuse me, not muzzle brake, but the compensator. I always get that backwards because in real life, a compensator is for vertical suppressing, and then muzzle brake is for a little bit of that side to side. It depends on where you expel the gas out. But in Battlefield 4, for some reason, it was backwards. But that's besides the point. So with the specialization system, you're not going to have the people who, through just lack of information, misinformation, misunderstanding, create a loadout that is suboptimal or garbage. So it's easier, it's more accessible, it's cleaner UI. But the bad thing that I don't like is that it's not grounded in the physicality of the weapon. And it seems like they tried to make everything physical in the other aspects of the game, everything animation to it, more soldier callouts. You interact with your environment in a lot of ways. And then when it comes to weapons, there's no physicality to it. It's all through this progression tree system. So while it has its advantages, it's also a little bit off-putting to me, but again, I understand why they're doing it. What I do like is how they changed up the actual tree path. And so from the alpha, most of your weapons, I think all of your weapons actually, had 4 different ways that you could go down the progression tree. Now, the only one that we actually saw was the Suomi KP31, and it was just 2 lines, but there were a total of 8 different paths that you could take with that weapon as far as upgrading it goes. And so you double the amount of options. There's 8 different ways that you could upgrade your Suomi KP31, 9 technically if you just keep it naked, but I can't really imagine why anybody would. And so while some do have negatives, it's more, instead of looking at the negatives, it's more players are going to choose which branch they go down based on the positives of that. And so, for instance, do you go the first 2 on the Suomi KP31 were the quick switch, where it decreased the amount of time it took to switch your weapons by, I believe, 33%. And then the other one was decreasing your time to ADS by 25%. Me personally, Suomi is not an ADS weapon, so I'm going to say screw that one. I'm going to go with the weapon switch because I might be running out of ammo and I need to switch my pistol quicker. That's just my personal opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I keep bringing up Battlefield 4, but I think because they've learned so many lessons from Battlefield 4, that when you brought up the whole muzzle brake and foregrip, like that, just in Battlefield 4, you killed people and picked up their weapons, and some of the loadouts that these people were running on their guns was so counterintuitive. Like, no wonder I keep killing you. You made your gun way worse.
Oh my god.
And I'm so
I'm gonna put a stubby on my shotgun.
Yeah, like I just put ACOG. Like I am very glad that they're adding more branches to the skill tree, or to the specialization trees, because in the beta it was either you went for more mobility, better mobility, running and gunning, or higher accuracy at range, depending, at least for the ARs.
Yeah.
To have some more gray areas in between there, where you can kind of really make, I want this gun to do this and be good at this, because this gun's either lacking in this, or I'm going to expound on the already good stats for this weapon and make it even better. And the fact that they have that graphical indicator now, like you said, Pun, on the right side is way better. Because before you just had the wording and the verbiage, you had no idea statistically what that was doing to your gun.
Yeah.
So it's nice to, and you should be able to, if you're going against 2 different specializations, if they've done it right, you should be able to see the give and take between those specializations, so you can make a better educated, guess on which specialization, what side of the tree you want to go down.
What really excites me, and sorry, this is a little bit off topic, but you just mentioned it. Dave Serlin, Florian, and I believe Nat were talking on Twitter yesterday, and they are saying that they want to bring in-depth numbers into the actual UI of Battlefield. And so instead of having to go to Simthic, you're going to actually be able to see it. And we actually saw a little bit of an improvement. And so for a lot of us that care about our stats, we always went to Battlefield Tracker or BF4 stats or BF1 stats to go see where we're at, because Battlefield 1 especially did not have any sort of stats that you could look at. But the UI that we saw in the dev talk yesterday, there was a ton of stuff. I mean, almost everything that you would see on BF4 stats was there, and so I'm really pumped about that. I really hope that we get a stat reset system again.
Yes,
I really hope.
Well, that's the thing, when they tossed out Battlelog, they didn't replace it with anything in BF1. They just scrapped it. And
it's so weird to think that I miss Battlelog.
I know.
So
that's right.
On the server side of it, I don't think I'll ever. I really like the integrated browser now, just because it works. Mm-hmm. But statistically, there was a lot of things with changing your. If you're bored at work, you can log on and just pour through your loadout, look at your stats. All right, I'm playing. I seem to be dying this way a lot of times. I'm dying to this gun a lot with these attachments. I'm going to try these my next round and see how they play. Like, you had a lot of information at your fingertips, not even counting Simthic, because those guys are on another level. But it always bothered me with BF1 and even other BFs, because Simthic was so good. You had to pour through a lot of outside sources to get the information that I always thought should have been presented in game.
Yes. I agree. Man. You hit the point on it. You hit it right there.
That's what I'm trying to make my thing. So you know what? Keep Simthic as complex as if they want to be. I will go through it and I will make it so you can understand it.
Exactly.
Well, I just hated the fact that you had to depend on them, even in BF4. once the attachments got so blasted complicated that you had to depend on them to try to understand what DICE was trying to do with the guns.
Every attachment combination, like you could literally sit there for hours and try different combinations on different weapons to see how it would impact
What the test range was so amazing for.
And
Please
that's
bring
another
us
thing.
a test range.
Thank you.
Man.
I could have swore I heard maybe a hint of that coming back. I don't know why they took it away. That was such
I bring it up in every feedback discussion that I can. We need a test range.
Test range or the gun bench in Hardline, either one.
that too.
Yeah.
The good thing about the test range was you could get practice in vehicles too. So
Yeah,
if you
true,
wanted
yeah,
to practice
true.
your flying, you didn't have to find an empty server.
Yep.
Which now that well, I'm not even going to bring up those 3 letters because I don't want to. I don't want to trigger.
Sean will just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, just out of respect. I don't want his eyes to be twitching while he's spending time with his family. But
So if there's any DICE developer listening, I will give you my free idea for the test range, free of charge. You can use it. All royalties go to you. Have it be a pre-deployment staging area in England, one of the areas that they would stage everybody at on an airfield, and there would be some
Yeah.
fields where they would practice their movements before shipping to mainland Europe. Have there be that. Have there be a quartermaster where you can switch your loadout and kit up different stuff. Have there be multiple different shooting ranges, one for close quarters, one out to 100 meters, and maybe one out to like 300 or something like that. Nothing too crazy. And then surround the entire area with a driving track and have some tank targets out in the distance.
yep.
Boom, done.
I mean, it was a small island in BF4. It's nothing major. You don't need to have this big complex. I just want to be able to try this gun with these specializations, especially the way the trees work now. Once you go down that path on those trees, at least in the beta, you can make any changes. I've heard they're changing that for the full release, but
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it. But have either of you played on the new PUBG test range?
No, man.
yeah, the one where you can just drop in and it's kind of like a playground.
That is absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic.
You can practice your drops. And
I don't think we'll get something of that level, but that was the amount of stuff that they put in there that you could actually practice on to build your skills. That was phenomenal.
Yep.
One of the few things that PUBG did well.
I just feel like it's such a weird, low effort thing to leave out of a game. Like all you got to do is it's load a map. It's only going to have one player on it. It's not like you don't have to worry about performance. It's local. It's not over the network. It's running off your hard drive. You're not loading into a server is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
All you got to do is throw them in with all of the guns, be able to play with the specializations and throw the vehicles. I just don't understand. Like I'm not a dev, so for all I know, it's a huge issue and it's a pain in the ass to code, but a lot of other games are doing it. And Battlefield's one of those games where the community puts that kind of time and effort into wanting to get better. Let them help themselves get better in your game and not have to do it somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that we were talking about over the past week or so is and it's something I guess once they actually released the information, it got a little heated on Twitter, was the number of vehicles and weapons that were going to show up on release. So what are do you think, I mean, let's see, I think they said it was 30 weapons, 30 primaries,
30 overall.
and
Yep.
24 vehicles.
Yep.
Yep.
So 30 primaries is the exact same number as Battlefield 1. I am going to ignore Battlefield 4 because that was just pure
Way too many.
oversaturation of primary
Way too
weapons.
many.
It was 64. And you saw a lot of weapons that had very similar play styles. And so you could argue that they were variants of each other. Things like the F2000, FAMAS, and the AEK all had very similar play styles. Things like the Scar H and the AR-160. Very similar play styles, and so you get those variants. I hated the variant system in Battlefield 1. It was absolutely garbage. It provided no way for players to actually have any sort of creativity or ability to make things the way they want them. And there were a lot of weapons that had garbage variants, things like the Automatico Factory or the Automatico Storm. It's a hip-fire weapon that is designed to be used in less than 20 meters.
Yep.
Which variant am I going to roll with? The one with excellent hip-fire and spread while moving and shooting, or the one where I have to be stationary in ADS?
Yeah.
It's a pretty obvious choice, not going to lie.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
So, But 30 primary weapons plus, let's say, for the sake of argument, that the 8 different specialization paths that we saw for the Suomi KP31 is the standard. That means that there are 240 ways for you to load up just your primary slot in your class.
Yeah.
Overall, 240 compared to the 80 to 90 in Battlefield 1. And you're going to have your own creativity. You're going to have control over it. And then we're going to get regular releases of weapons. And it's not going to be, I really don't think we're going to be waiting, 2 months to get our first drop of weapons. No, I have a prediction that we're going to get our first drop of weapons within the first month of release. That's when I think we're going to get our first drop. Plague Beast, to answer your question, yes, there will be mastery service assignments for a specific weapon depending on how much you use your weapon. And if you complete those mastery assignments, and some of them may be a little bit difficult, you will get special skins for your weapons. It's not going to be, the coolest looking skins are locked behind a battle pack and you have to wait 12 months after release to get the one skin that you wanted. No, if you want a skin, you can go out and get it.
Yep.
That was my biggest complaint with Battlefield 1 is the way you progress to unlock guns in that game. They really forced you out of either a productful or a cohesive play style that helped your team. Like they had you using a lot of guns that weren't really optimal for every map or every situation just to unlock another gun that you actually wanted to use. It's almost like they were forcing people to use these crap guns that nobody was using anyways, but hey, you got to get 500 kills with this to unlock that. I really hope they change
Go
that.
shoot down planes with LMGs.
Yeah, exactly. Go sit on the edge of the map and just, I really hope the unlock system's a little more fleshed out in BF5. I didn't mind the way I see it. Like if you get a gun and you want to use that gun and you want to master that gun, everything you do to unlock for that gun or that gun type should be related to what you do with that gun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think.
I always thought that all the cool black and gold skins in Battlefield 1, things like I think it's the Doughboy for the BAR.
Yeah.
That should have been get 10 service stars with the weapon.
Yep.
Make it easy.
Related to that weapon, and
Yeah,
I really
exactly.
hope they do that with the mastery stuff in BF5.
Well, if you go back to the dev talks, that's what they're doing. So they showed off the Suomi KP31. Again, they showed that weapon off a lot because I think Florian really likes that weapon too. It's one of my favorite weapons. That weapon was absolutely amazing in the beta. Just saying, STG ain't got shit on that. But first 5 levels of the progression with your weapon, you get the first all the first skin parts, so you can make your gun Shrek green, and then you unlock the urban, and then somewhere around I think progression level 5 you get a mastery assignment, and then progression level 9 you get a mastery assignment. If you complete those assignments, then you get special weapon parts and weapon skins.
That's awesome. And another thing I hated was the randomness that they had in BF1, where it was all through crates.
Yeah.
I want to grind this gun. This is my gun. I'm going to main this gun. Let me unlock everything for this gun by using this gun.
I've yet to get a rare skin on my Subsplotter Marksman. I played that gun all the blasted time, and I've yet to get a skin.
2 years later.
Yeah. I'm serious. It's just totally freaking random. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, that infuriates. Same thing with vehicle skins, vehicle customizations. Grind that vehicle, unlock all the cool stuff for that vehicle. Don't leave it up to chance. Don't.
Yeah.
It takes all the reasons for me to want to grind something if you're going to take it out of my control.
Going back to the original topic of this, which was the controversy around the weapons available at launch, I personally think that the biggest source of controversy has been the fact that there are some weapons that are so iconic that are not present.
Yeah.
Like the M1 Garand is such an obvious example, and it's not there at launch because it's going to be coming a little bit later down the road. I don't think it'll be long. I think we'll probably see it around. So they said each chapter of Tides of War is going to be 8 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
So we'll probably see it at the end of the second or the beginning of the third chapter. So January-ish timeframe is when I expect us to see the M1 Garand make it come in. But
I'm fine with that. I think they need to breadcrumb in those lucrative World War II weapons. If they had all of the weapons that we all know and love at launch, people would be furious because we're gonna get crap guns for DLC content. So.
Yeah, and that's something that Dave Serland, his handle is Tigger. Some of you people might know him. He's the senior producer for Battlefield 5 or designer, one of those titles. I apologize if you're watching, Dave. I'm horrible with titles. But he said that that's something that they understand. Since the monetary model for Battlefield is now based on a live service, they need to be able to grow the player base over time. They can't have it stay the same. They can't have it decline. They need to be able to grow it. And so they understand how to make that happen. And that's going to be drop some really badass content down the road, keep us fed, keep us placated. And so we're not waiting 6 to 8 months for a DLC drop where all of a sudden nobody likes the maps and there's like 2 good weapons.
I agree. I think they're doing it very. It seems like everything so far when it comes to weapons right now is very well thought out, especially content-wise, roadmap-wise.
They're going to be giving us a Tides of War roadmap soon.
Yep.
Soon trademark.
Which is what we've all been asking for since
Absolutely.
announcement.
Yeah.
Let us know what we have to look forward to so we can be hyped for you. Like, you gotta tease us.
Yep. And I think the roadmap will be kind of like what ties everything together for the community. Yeah. I really think it'll answer a lot of those kind of still dark questions that we really don't know much about. Including RSP in community tools and
So they're going to be doing how this past week was weapons and vehicles. If I remember right, in 2 weeks is going to be communities and RSP.
Nice, good.
Could be mistaken. It might be 3 weeks, but between 2 weeks and 3 weeks, somewhere around there is when they said, because they released the Road to Battlefield 5 roadmap, and it was one of the topics on there. So they've kept it in order so far. It said October, so I'm going to assume late October-ish is when we'll hear info about RSP.
Good. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. But I think
we all know what we want. So.
But related to the topic we're talking about, I think the roadmap will help people better understand why some of these weapons were released.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense for instance, I don't know for a fact, but I don't think that there's going to be a lot of American interaction in this first part of the Tides of War. It's going to be mainly Norwegian. I mean, I don't know what we'll see, but I mean, the M1 Garand's mainly an American gun. It really didn't see action in World War II until a little bit later in the war. So I think that's the reason why we're not seeing it right at the beginning.
I would agree with you. If it weren't for the fact that the Sturmgewehr 44 and the Volkssturmgewehr Guslav are in the
super
game.
Yeah. Experimental. Super late.
Yeah, the Guslav was very last minute, like literally like 2 months before the war ended. The Sturmgewehr 44, that was fairly late as well. The Fallschirmjägergewehr 42 or FG 42, that was 1942, obviously.
Yeah.
So
good point.
I don't think the argument of timeline really fits. I think it's more based around the other side that you hit on, what countries are actually fighting. And so for this first chapter, I guarantee you we're going to get the Sjögren inertial shotgun, because it's a Norwegian Swedish weapon.
Yeah.
I forget which one it is.
That's all good. I'm not a weapons expert when it comes to history, so.
By the way, my favorite word to say for like the last 3 months has been Fallschirmjägergewehr 42. For the FG-42. It's just such a fun word to say.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah.
One weapon that really surprised me, though, that really came out of left field, was the Krag Jorgensen. That weapon was such a pile of garbage that when it was introduced in like 1890, it was used by the U.S. in the Spanish-American War, and the Marines and the soldiers that came in, they were all equipped with that, and they were immediately outclassed by lever-action rifles that were like 30 years old at that point.
Yep.
All of the Krag Jorgensens, the reload mechanism almost never worked. There was a lot of manufacturing issues with the weapon, so I was really, really surprised to see that weapon on this list. But it's a Swedish weapon again, or Norway. Excuse me, Norway.
And they obviously love it because it seems to be very powerful in the game. So we'll see how that turns out.
Well, because it's like we mentioned earlier, that gun really really rewards accuracy. So it's not a gun you're going to win a lot of gunfights at if you're not accurate. So
Yeah.
Well, it's also DICE taking a little bit of creative liberty. I mean, the Sturmgewehr One Tac 5 never existed. There was never a select fire fully auto version of the Volkssturmgewehr Guslav.
Yeah.
So that's them taking a little bit of creative liberty, which is completely understandable. It's a video game.
they're doing that with vehicles too, which
Yeah.
I kind of appreciate. It's kind of cool. It keeps it in context, but it gives them some room for game balance and game activity. It's going to add some depth there. Like that vehicle it's on a tank platform, but it's got AA guns on it. I can't remember what they called it in game, but they teased it on Twitter.
Yeah.
That looked awesome. Never existed, but it fits. Like
right.
you know.
Yeah. All right. So, any last comments on overall weapons, vehicle adjustments, anything that we didn't really talk about that you want to hit before we move on?
Quit complaining that there's not enough weapons. It's not true.
Well, I don't know who it was on Twitter, but they actually posted how many guns and vehicles were released for each battlefield.
1942 had 10.
Yeah. So, generally speaking, Battlefield 5 is in line with most of the battlefields. Take Battlefield 4 and throw it out the window because it was just a freak of nature. Yeah.
Way too many guns.
But Battlefield 3.
Of those guns, they were crap. They shouldn't have been in the game anyways. But
so it is in line with pretty much every previous Battlefield. So I personally don't really know why people are going to argue. If they understood, how previous Battlefields have done in the past, I don't think they would be like, oh, they'd be okay. There we go. Because when I knew that, I was like, well, 30 guns and 24 vehicles, that's pretty much what Battlefield 3 did. And in my opinion, Battlefield 3 is kind of the standard for, Battlefield. It was my favorite Battlefield. So, when I look at Battlefields after that, I'm like, okay, is it going to be like BF3? Is this like BF3? Is this like BF3? So in terms of the release of these weapons and vehicles, hey, it's like BF3. So I'm good.
I will say this, BF1, those 30 guns, those count variants. So only those...
No, so it was 30...
Base guns?
Base guns, and then
just talking about release.
Each base gun had 2 to 3 variants. And so if you counted all the different variants, there were like between 80 and 90 because some had 2, some had 3, and I think one had 4. I think the Russian 1895 had 4 variants off the top of my head. Cavalry, trench, sniper, and I don't know. But
that makes sense to me, because if you were to take the 30 base with these and then add the specializations, it's almost like you know what I mean, the same amount of guns. Because
no. So if we're using the Suomi KP31 as an example of what we can expect, there were 8 different variants that you could do with that Suomi. So 8 times 30 is a lot bigger than 2 to 3 times 30.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. All right.
Math.
Yeah, math. We are not allowed to use math on this podcast.
Calm down, nerd.
All right.
You're right. I forgot they were talking about launch weapons, not including everything
just launch weapons.
That makes sense. 30 is enough. Shut up, guys.
All right.
You're gonna suck with half of them anyways.
And this is something that we talked about a little bit earlier. You alluded to it, and that is player visibility. Yes. Now, one of the things they showed in yesterday's Dev Talk was they showed a clip of how player visibility will be now as opposed to what it was during the open beta. And they used what they called distance haze. So do you think this distance haze addition will be effective? Because to me, it appeared that it was effective. The problem is that the clip that they showed a guy that was literally 10 meters from you. I thought it would have been a lot better if they'd have showed a clip where the guy was 100 meters, 150 meters away, and then switched between the distance haze and turn it off and then see how that changes. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it'll be effective, or you think we're still going to have visibility problems? Go ahead, Shaddix, if you want to.
Yeah, I'll let you.
Personally, I know I'm in the very small minority when I say this. I actually liked the player visibility from the alpha and the beta. It made character camouflage actually do something for the first time in Battlefield history. If you hid in the shadows and you had a dark uniform, it was going to be hard to see you. And guess what? That's how it works. If you were wearing good camouflage, I mean, I know we didn't have control over our customization, but on Narvik, if you were on the German team and you had a white uniform and you were rolling around the snow, so you had even more white on you, it was going to be hard to see you. And guess what? That's the purpose of the camouflage. And I actually really enjoyed that fact. I enjoyed realizing that, hey, I have a dark uniform on. I can go sit in the shadows and snipe these people, and they're going to have a lot harder time seeing me than if I were to be wearing a bright white uniform and be standing in this area. And so it's something that I had never seen in a Battlefield game, and I thought that it added another little depth. But they're changing it. They're making it look like Battlefield 3. It's going to be all blue hazy. So
That's what my problem was. I'm like, it's blue tint. It's blue tint 2.0. It's exactly my point. And I was like, dude, they just brought BF3 blue tint back. Everybody's gonna be like, ah.
But that's my spiel. I know I'm in the vast majority because a lot of people were complaining that they could barely see people. Some of the sites were really hard to use, like the reflector site was super dark and it wasn't even aligned right on some weapons.
Yeah, it was totally.
And so there were some issues with that. But overall, I enjoyed it. And now my main concern with the haze that they're adding is that the environment will become washed out. Whereas, like, if you went back to Rotterdam and if you looked at footage of Rotterdam that you guys probably have on your hard drive still, that map looks amazing. The colors are so vibrant.
It was beautiful. They nailed that map, man. It's so good. Yeah, I agree, and I'm in with your point too, Shaddix. Is I was glad that camouflage made a difference. And it made you think about when you're customizing your character, your player in your company, that you had to think about what your camouflage was going to be, especially depending on what map you're going to play. And
am I going to run with this crazy shit, or am I actually going to play tactical? Am I going
yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, from that point of view, I understood it, and I realized, like, man, this actually camouflage makes a difference, and I kind of appreciated that. I agree. It was hard to see people at times, especially if they were hiding inside of a corner and it was dark. But hey, that's kind of how it is. if
we're all prior military here, we can tell you that it's really damn hard to see some people sometimes.
Yeah, so from there, I appreciated what they did, and so I don't know. This is going to be a wait and see for me. We'll see how it affects. Especially at long distances, how it'll affect people being able to see you.
Yeah.
I like the fact that I could kind of, use cover and use the color of the map and things like that to hide me from the freaking snipers that were up on the train rail up there, second level on Rotterdam. So I don't know. We'll see. I guess it's going to appease to the broad audience, but I don't know. I preferred kind of the way it was. I mean, I still saw the people I needed to shoot when I needed to shoot them, and that's really what mattered to me. So,
I think, like, my only concern with this, I actually like the way the player models blended it with the environment during the beta and the alpha as well. My only problem was sometimes when, especially at a distance, when you saw enemy soldiers, there was no depth there. They kind of got washed out in the background. If they add just enough of that haze, so there's some depth, you can kind of get an idea of how far away they were against certain backdrops, especially the Norwegian map with those gray piles of rock that snipers love to sit on. And if they were German, they had the gray uniforms. Depending on how you were looking at that, where the sun was, they would wash out in that. And it wasn't so much about blending in, they just got washed out and lost in all that.
Yeah.
And even if they just added a little bit of an outline, you don't need to.
Yeah.
I don't know if they need to add this crazy haze and the fog. Just make the players pop just a little bit. But I'm with you guys. If you're in a dark spot wearing a dark uniform and you're trying to be sneaky, you should be rewarded for picking a play style that kind of works with what you've got as far as camouflage goes. If you've got the white uniforms and you're in the snow and you're being still, you're choosing your targets, your engagements, you should be rewarded for that. Yep. But the thing that, like, they showed it off on that urban map, and like you said, there was no scale there because they were right up on the player. So I would like to see that from different directions, different lighting angles, to see how that player is really going to pop out at you, as compared to the stuff in the background. You always want the player to be the foreground and the map to be the background. And God, you fucking brought up Battlefield 3, and Jesus Christ.
Blue tent, baby. Blue tent.
We got blue in Battlefield 3 and yellow in Battlefield 4, and it's like they just could not pick a color and just run with it. They had to. I don't think they're gonna make it that extreme. I think it's just gotta be just enough to make. I hope you're gonna trigger me now, because the sun in Battlefield 5 is already super bright. So
it was so bright.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That also reminded me of Battlefield 3. You had those God Sun moments where you couldn't see a damn thing.
Stop it, Michael Bay.
Yeah, right.
But as long as it's just enough to make the players pop, I don't, it just kind of got wishy-washy. There's the colors in this game are way more vibrant than they were for me in BF1. BF1 was a fucking buffet of greens and browns, whereas especially on the urban maps, like you said, Rotterdam, you got the reds from the brick, the vehicles. There was a lot more contrast between the player and the environment, whereas in BF1 everyone kind of looked like the same shit puddle. So I just hope they've been really smart about everything else. I think they'll be smart about this. I just don't want to lose. I love the way the beta played as far as player, the way they blended into the environment.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. All right, so overall thoughts on DICE's direction with the beta. What about you, Kick? What do you think?
Post beta or
post beta. Yeah, what they've done, since the beta and where they're going to be taking us to release.
I'm 100% on board. Like I said, the thing about these dev talks and the Twitter takeovers and all the Reddit posts is they're being extremely methodical to let the community know these are small changes. We're doing them because of the feedback you gave us, and this is how we're doing them, and this is why we're doing them. It's always good knowing the reasoning and what the outcome they're looking for any change they're doing in a game. That way the community can think beyond just the change that's happening when it's happening. So as long as they keep that up, I'm pumped. I haven't seen any changes that looked ridiculous to me. They look like very well thought out, very well planned, very well communicated changes. So I'm pumped. I'm really excited.
All right, Shadows.
I need this game now. Give it to me. We got another 40 days. I think 34 if you have Origin Premiere, whatever that is.
Yeah, depending on how you pre-ordered it, or bought it, or.
So something new to me that I heard, and I have not confirmed this, but I want to make sure that you guys were aware that rumors about this. If you do have Origin Premiere or EA Access, or maybe just one, maybe both, I don't know. But I've been hearing people say that the 10-hour limited trial thing is not a thing. If you get the full, the top tier, I think it's if you buy the yearly access of Origin Premiere, it is unlimited time starting on the 9th.
Yeah, sweet. That is true. That is true. You only the 10 hours only applies if you have regular Origin or EA access.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an extra 11 days before the standard edition release.
That's crazy to me.
It is. It's so much time. And if you're a content creator, you have to get that.
Yep.
You have to.
That's a big jump. That's almost 2 weeks of you progressing. You're gonna have people running around with max out, ARs and.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be frustrating.
Especially if they already know what their main gun's going to be. If they've already got an idea in their head, okay, I'm going to play with this gun for this class. Yeah, they're going to have it already upgraded by the time the big population comes in.
Or a lot of these people even have it installed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays.
We didn't talk about it during the specialization part of this podcast, but what's interesting is Dave or Florian, I forget which one, brought up that your starting weapons for each class will already have a version of it equipped with some specialization applied. And so if you're brand new to the game, and you're just getting started out, and you don't want to be at a disadvantage because other people are going to have pimped out guns, you're going to have your starting weapon have some specializations to help give you a little bit of an edge. So your Sten, possibly your STG-44 if they keep that the starting weapon for the assault class, your KE-7 if they keep that the starting weapon for support. So it'll help with the new players, and then you can start to branch out and choose which weapon you want from there.
That's fair. I like that.
Yeah.
That way you're not, you're not miles behind the pack. You can at least compete and not feel like you're getting overwhelmed by players that have been playing for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the Battlefield community, 11 days is enough for some people to get 100, 150 hours into that game. So
I don't know how they do it, but man,
I'm old. I'm old and I have a job. I can't.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Is they don't
these
work.
Kids that get home from school and they got 10 hours of Battlefield to look forward to. It's easy to rack up 100 hours in 11 days.
So I'm looking at my calendar. So I know I have the week of the 20th off from school. So
burn, baby.
Break. Not spending time with my family. I'm spending time on Battlefield.
Yeah. Yep, I hear you. All right, so let's go. We had a few chat questions. I don't think we really answered. One in particular, Plogbeast was talking about Firestorm. So there hasn't been a lot of information that's come out with Firestorm. I think is that what are they talking about the BR next week? Are they? Is that in the roadmap for them releasing information about it?
They're talking about Firestorm next week or the week afterwards. They haven't said anything about a beta. I don't think we'll get a beta until after the launch of the main game. So personally, I would expect Firestorm to launch maybe at the beginning of 2019. So beginning of January at the earliest is when I would expect it. We'll find out more information when they do talk about it. I have some theories on how it's going to work. So what's interesting is they added objectives into Battle Royale, which is super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Not just the actual vehicles, objectives. And so I made a video back right after EA Play. I discussed a few different ways that I first saw the Battle Royale mode to work out, and one of them was objective based, to where you start off with big map, you got all your objectives, and then the circle shrinks to exclude one objective, and then the circle shrinks again to exclude another objective, and it would keep circling into a particular objective. And so if you were able to hold that objective the entire time, you would have access to the increased loot, as well as there was a possibility that the circle would close in on you. I don't know if that's actually is going to be how it's going to work. It'll be interesting to see. Although I love the fact that Firestorm is using a physical object that makes sense as the circle instead of this magic blue ring that's sat for some reason. A ring of fire, and even the new one, the Blizzard one, whatever that one's called, ROE.
Ring of Elysium.
Yeah, even that one, it goes to really cold temperatures, but only in this. Ring of Fire makes sense. Ring of Fire, it's physical. You would want to run away from it. VG game over. Unfortunately, no, it's not. Soon.
Soon.
If it is, let me know where you got it.
Yeah, right.
I need it in my
tell
life
anybody.
Some serious VPN action going on if you haven't, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My big concern with Firestorm is, I don't know, having to compete with Blackout.
Oh, yeah,
because so many people have played it now, and everybody is pretty much in the majority when they say that it is a fantastic and probably the best BR they've played, and that includes me. And the fact,
to me from the outside, I don't play much Battle Royale. The Blackout one looks a lot like PUBG. It just looks like a way better version of the PUBG Battle Royale.
Yeah,
It's PUBG but fun.
it is.
Honestly, it's everything that it's obviously more arcadey, but when you play Blackout, you are not bored. Like I played that beta the night it launched for 6 hours straight, and I have not had that much fun in gaming in a very long time. Just flat out fun. Very high bar for Battlefield to set for Firestorm, but depending on the direction they take it in, they don't have to compete. You know, they don't have to be, you know, carbon copies of each other. If they do this correctly, and it has that flair of Battlefield, it'll hook Battlefield players and they'll play it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just worried I'm worried that they limit themselves with having just squad play, because there's so many people that love playing solo and duo BRs. And we don't know if Battlefield's going to have that or not. There's nothing that's been said that, you know, we won't have it. But they have really focused on the squad aspect of it, and there's a lot of players that are like, well, I like playing solos and duos, so what about us? You know, so and then on top of that, you know, it is limited to 64 players. Where I think Blackout, they test up to 99? I know there was like 80 players at one point.
88, and then they bumped it up to 100.
Okay, so
they're looking at 100.
Yeah. So
although their servers aren't looking too hot. Battle Nonsense did a test, and they Blackout was dropping down to like 10 hertz.
Yeah. They actually did that on purpose. Vandahar had a Reddit post about it. And they're starting with lower tick rates, lower frames, and they're steadily going to increase them to see how stable the servers can be.
Okay.
They'd eventually like it to be so there's no frame lock, that it's unlimited frames, whatever your system can handle.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have 100 people doing 144 hertz refresh, that's a lot of server load. So they're doing it in small increments to see what it can handle.
Yeah.
Because they've never done anything like this.
And I don't know. Is there a server that can handle that much traffic like that? I mean, it's
Battlefield's got to be close. I mean, they're doing it with 64 players with destructibility, with vehicles. I mean, the Dice engine, the Frostbite engine was made for BR games. I mean, they've been the biggest. No other games really doing anything on the Unreal Engine, anyways. Is it can't even compete with Frostbite.
Yeah.
And you never know, they might bring the player count up on that too, but it all depends on what direction they're going on. Like he said, if it's objective base, it would make sense that it's squad only, and it would make sense that it's only 64 players. So
it'll be interesting to see, and we'll find out soon. For right now, all we have to go on is a little bit of trailer footage.
2 seconds of trailer footage.
Very good. All right, so let's see. Any more questions on chat? If you do, we will definitely answer them. Make sure you ask them.
What was your guys' favorite weapon from the beta?
Ooh.
I mean, STG is too easy. I mean, that's...
Well, I didn't hardly play Assault. I played Medic most of the time. I enjoyed the Sten. I thought the Sten was fun, man.
Sten was fun. Yep.
So personally, I was torn between the Suomi KP31 for the medic and then the FG42 for the support. The FG42 would easily out DPS the STG. It had a lot of recoil, but if you know how to control it and you spec it out right, ooh, that thing was a beast. And then the Suomi was just a hip fire machine with an extended mag, 50 rounds of super tight hip fire. Jump around a corner and headshot them. Good lord, that thing was OP as shit. I loved it.
I pretty much played support exclusively towards the end, because like you said, once you started getting those specializations and those LMGs came more in line and were more competitive, that was a really fun class to play. They need to fix the bipoding. Other than that, that class was a ton of fun.
From what they showed at the dev talk yesterday, it looks like it's a lot better. Good. Because that was so annoying. Going up against a piece of cover with like your FG42 or the KE7, you're shooting at somebody, and then all of a sudden your gun goes like that because you deploy the bipod.
No.
And sometimes depending where that happened to me when I was in the doorway. There was something about that environmental model to where it told the game that I can bipod on this, and my game just went Tourette's right in the middle of a doorway. So I knew they would dial it in. It was just they had it working so well in other BFs. It's such a weird mechanic to not really get right on the outset. But
well, I wouldn't say that they've had it working very well in other Battlefields, because Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, it hardly ever worked when you wanted it to. Battlefield 1, it worked most of the time, except for the times when you wanted to bipod and just straight up wouldn't, or you tried to go prone and it'd stand you back up for some reason.
Yeah, once they get that fixed, I really did have a fun time with support because everybody needed ammo. Everybody in that game needed ammo because of attrition, so it was just free points.
What was super interesting, so the beta squads event, that was super fun that I got to participate in, going up against all these big names. And then Jack Frags and Westy put out their video talking about attrition, and I look at their squad and they're all assault players. And then it was me, Ascendaz, Darkness 429, and a YouTuber called Jehovah in a squad, and we got top squad. I was second in the server, and guess what? We had a well-balanced squad. I was running either medic or support most of the time. I was dealing out ammo and health, and we were just killing it, man. We were
sniping.
Oh yeah.
That's why I like that they have 4 players per squad. Is you have 1 per class. So if you have a balanced squad, one good squad can run a server. At least I could in the beta.
Yeah.
Me and Pun and a couple other people, we would squad up. You would run that server. You'd be top squad all day.
Yep.
Now, what do you guys think about these rumors of a 5th class coming out?
I honestly haven't heard any rumors, so share.
So I retweeted, I believe it was Dave Serland. He said that in the future they would be looking at more, not only weapon categories, but classes altogether. And so one future class that I think that they may end up bringing out is a sort of stealth-based class, something like a suppressed recon with spawn beacon.
That was me in BF4 all day.
Yep. Recon, suppressed ACWR, or suppressed AK-5C, spawn beacon, and a tugs.
Yeah, and we do know there are spawn beacons in BF5, so that would totally fit. That would be amazing. You just made me chub.
Because that was one thing that I keep giving back in my feedback is that a lot of these classes don't have a large weapon variety, so you can't really get creative with your classes. It's a lot like Battlefield 1 in a lot of regards.
Yeah.
Scouts in BF1, you were pretty much forced to stay off the objective because of your weapon choices. You didn't have a weapon choice that would allow you to get up close, really. I mean, some of your sidearms maybe, but
especially with the sweet spot mechanic. You actually got penalized for being on objectives because of depending on the distance of engagement and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, you just made me excited. That would be badass. Plop down a spawn beacon and just harass their gimme while the rest of your team just gets every objective. Spawn trap city, dude.
That's how I play. I always go for back caps. I am always back raking.
Yeah, that's what I try to do too. Flank and come around and get the back cap, or go against the Zerg. You know, I don't flow with the Zerg.
The Zerg oh my god, that's one of my biggest gripes with Battlefield 1.
And that's why I love BO5 so much, because they're trying to mitigate that.
Well, that and if you see a Zerg, just calling a BF or a V1 right on the next objective that they're headed to. Boom, no more Zerg.
Yeah, true that. True that. All right.
Oh man.
Well, guys, I think we'll go ahead and try to wrap this up. What are y'all going to be playing while we're waiting for BF5?
BF4.
BF4.
Oh, I love BF4.
BF5, the beta and the alpha has completely ruined BF1 for me. I cannot enjoy myself on BF1 anymore.
I can maybe do an hour.
You say that because every other Battlefield ever ruined BF1 for me. So,
I started the franchise a lot later than some other people. My first Battlefield game was Bad Company 2, and even then I didn't really play a whole lot. My first Battlefield that I really started to get into it was Battlefield 4. And so I was a little bit later to the franchise. And then Battlefield 1, it was very cinematic. It was cool. That was where all my friends were, and so I played it. I enjoyed playing with my friends mainly, and that was the main thing. I just didn't get excited about new stuff in Battlefield 1, which is super disappointed. I really tried making that game enjoyable, but I kept going back to comparing it to Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3. It's like I enjoyed these games so much. Why am I just not enjoying myself? And then Battlefield 5, getting a breath of fresh air.
Right back on track, dude.
I need it now.
Yep. I can't even explain. While Dee was there, I wouldn't shut up about it after the first podcast. But it just, as a longtime Battlefield fan, I've been playing since 1942. I'm 37 years old, so most of my adult life has been spent playing Battlefield games. And the fact that I played Battlefield 5, and 3 hours later, when I turned it off, I didn't want to go to bed. I wanted to stay up and keep playing Battlefield 5. I have not felt that since Battlefield 4. That's 5 years ago. It's been half a decade since I've been excited for a Battlefield game. So it feels so good to be able to go through that again.
Yep.
I'm just giddy.
I agree. I'm that way too. I mean, I would get done playing, and for the next couple hours, all I was thinking about was Battlefield 5.
Yeah,
Thinking about the games, going through what I was.
Am I gonna do tomorrow? Am I gonna try to max out this weapon tomorrow? What am I gonna? Oh my god!
I was going back through the gameplay and thinking through in my mind. I was like, man, how is this doing? How did I enjoy this? And how, what was this, a certain interaction or a gunfight on a map? And I was like, man, especially like the B flag, the B flag on Rotterdam, in the White House was fantastic. Those interactions, those gunfights in there were fantastic. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we can't play this for another 2 months.
Yeah, I don't. Do you remember that round of operations that me and you were playing, Pun, as defenders?
Oh yeah, the one I recorded and put it on YouTube.
We just I'll never forget that round, just because it was just me and you, 2-man squad, top of the leaderboard, just flanking and ruining people.
Yep.
And you couldn't have moments like that in BF1 because of at least I couldn't.
There'd be a random grenade come out of nowhere, or an attack plane, or an Ilya Murmet, or a fucking artillery truck.
The way the weapon balance was and the ammo limitations on some of the weapons, you could flank easily, but you'd only kill 1 or 2 people and then be out of ammo. Whereas like me and Pun could talk and communicate, and because the time to kill shorter by a bullet or two, just enough, especially with the ARs and the SMGs, they're viable again. But like I remember just having a smile on my face for that round. Took 45 minutes.
Yeah. And
we had a good time that whole time. And I'll never forget that round, because I haven't felt like that, like I said, in 5 years, where I used to feel like that every night I played Battlefield 4 almost.
And it only took 2 people.
After 6 months, post 6 months after launch, let me say that, after they fixed their game, but you know what I'm saying.
Thankfully, I was stuck in Afghanistan for that whole shit show, so
yeah.
But the thing about it was, it only took 2 people talking to each other and playing off of each other
to ruin that other team.
And that's all it took.
Yeah.
And it just made it fun. It was unbelievable. It really was. And it wasn't necessarily about how well you're doing with your kills, but just being able to play as a team and being able to work as a squad together and overcome the obstacles that you had to do to complete the objectives.
Yep.
I do like the longer game time in Battlefield 5. It's a lot more similar to Battlefield 4, where you'd have those 45 minutes. Some would even go up to 50 or 55 minutes. But Battlefield 1, the rounds always felt just way too short, and I think a lot of that was due to how the conquest system worked.
Bad scoring.
But the game would be Battlefield 1 game would be over in 20 to 25 minutes, and those shorter games, you don't really get invested in them. I don't feel like I'm just going through the motions in Battlefield 1. Like, oh, I'll just go to this flag because we don't have it, or I'll go sit on the back cab because it's the only place where I can get kills because the Zerg is running around over there.
Yep. And even worse with Battlefield 1, the rounds only lasted 25 minets. But you were probably mathematically never going to win that match 10 minutes ago because of the way the scoring system worked.
Perfect point. You're right. You're out of it at 750 if you had a 150 point lead, or if they had a 150 point lead. All you do is stack your KDR at that point because trying to win is useless.
And how many close games did we have BF5?
There's been one comeback that I can still remember, and it was a Friday night stream. We hopped in, joined the server when it was 900 to 400. Necro and his guys were on the losing team, and then we hopped in. There were 4 open spots. The AOD Friday night stream guys. So me and my other guys, we hopped in. We came back. It started out when we joined the server. It was 900 to 400. Train was already dead, and we came back. We won that game 1,000 to 960.
Damn.
Wow.
We all capped them, and that is the only way. The only way to have a comeback like that is an all cap.
Yeah, because they got points for it wasn't majority flags. They could have one flag and still bleed you, which is ridiculous.
Yep.
That is the only major comeback that I can think of off the top of my head.
I can count them on one hand, the ones that I've had, and they've never been that dramatic. They've only been, 300 point comeback or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was because you got an all cap, and all of a sudden the ticket bleed just went, through the roof.
I'll say on the flip side of that, during the Battlefield 5 Alpha and Beta, I can think of 1 or 2 rounds where it was a blowout, and the majority of the rounds were competitive score-wise.
Yeah.
There were so many close games within like 10 tickets. It was ridiculous.
I had 3 rounds that all together they were 1 ticket games.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there. I said, "You got to be kidding me!"
That's why the rounds last longer, because majority flags are the ones getting the points now. So you have that back and forth again. It's not just you're getting scored just for having one flag. You shouldn't be rewarded for having your gimme. It's a participation trophy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to have your gimme. It's next to your spawn. Anyways, rant.
It's so since we're on this topic of ticket bleed and how they work in BF5, I watched a video a while back. I think X Factor came out with a video where he was talking about how your proximity to the flag makes a difference in how your influence on the flag is, and how Yep. So I mean, is that true? Because I didn't particularly notice it myself.
So
Absolutely.
It was not there in the alpha. It was introduced in the beta. So if there were only 2 people on a flag, let's say you're on Charlie flag in Rotterdam. So one person from each team is on the flag. It's contested, but neither side is burning it. One person sits right next to the flag. Flag's going to start burning in his favor because he's closer. But the downside to that is he's more exposed.
Yeah.
And so it's a trade-off. I really like that. So instead of just someone camping in one of the buildings on the 3rd floor or whatever, they're going to be on the flag, but they're not going to win this.
Yeah. Especially the cap zones in the beta were pretty big. Like, if you think of the A cap on the Norwegian map, that's a big cap point.
Oh, it's huge.
And I like that.
And that's what I mean. That rewards you. Get your butt on the flag so you can get that burn. You can get in and out of there quicker, go to the next flag.
Yeah.
Or you can draw out who's ever hiding in the attic because they're losing the burn. Now they're freaking out thinking they're outnumbered. You know what I mean? When it could be, like you said, 2v2 standoff. We're just on the flag and you're sitting in an attic. So you should be rewarded for being on that flag.
It's an idea that I had never even thought of before.
No,
and
me neither.
Boom. It's just like, how is this not always in the game?
Yeah.
It just makes sense, and it plays well. It really did. It does make a big difference.
Yep. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we will go ahead and call it a night. I do appreciate everybody coming out. Shadox, go ahead, if you will, and give yourself a plug and let everybody know what your social media is, that they can give you a follow, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Thanks, guys, for having me on today. My name is Shadox. I make Battlefield content on YouTube as well as here on Twitch. I go into in-depth mechanics as well as give you guys tips, tricks, things to help you get a little bit better at the game. That's one thing that I've tried to work on myself, and I've seen lots of improvements, and I want to share what I've learned with you guys. So if you're interested in that, go check out youtube.com/Shadox Films, and we might be able to plug it in, or you can just use the same Twitter handle right there. That's my handle on Twitter right there. Thank you, Pun. And then I stream here on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, with the exception of today, usually 4 to 8 p.m. Central Time. So if you just want to see me, right now I'm playing Battlefield 4 because I don't want to play Battlefield 1. So if you're interested in that, come hang out. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on today, Pun and Kick. It was a lot of fun coming back. And then if you guys want to know more about Battlefield mechanics, hit me up.
Holla. My name's Kickstand. You can reach me at Twitter or at Kickstand on Twitter and twitch.tv/Kickstand. I stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right before I go to work. And then if I have time on days like today, I stream Saturday, Sunday, whenever. But follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch to be notified when I go live. I play mostly first-person shooters, whether it's BR games, Battlefield games, anything shooter-esque, any game where I have to compete against somebody else with bullets and guns. So that's where you can reach me. Thank you, Pun, for having setting this up again this weekend, dude.
Awesome, man. Yeah, appreciate it, guys. And I am Pun. I am also known as the Frugal Streamer. I do streaming tutorials on YouTube, especially when it comes to free software using OBS Studio, Streamlabs OBS, and Voicemeeter Banana. So if you're interested in learning how to live stream and learning how to do it for cheap, go check out my YouTube at youtube.com/The Frugal Streamer. I also have a separate YouTube where I upload gameplay occasionally related to Battlefield, especially, and that is youtube.com/TFS_Punisher. And then you can, of course, follow me right here as you're watching on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TFS Punisher. I do appreciate everybody coming out today and taking a chance to, just listen to us talk about the beta. And I think you can tell we are very excited for Battlefield 5 and what it's going to offer us. And if you have any questions, definitely ask us on Twitter, or we're all active there. That is why I've posted each of us' Twitters under our scenes here. Make sure you hit us up. We would love to discuss Battlefield 5 with you guys. And I guess that's pretty much it, guys. I do appreciate everybody coming out today and supporting the Battlefield podcast. Shadox, thank you for coming out today and taking the time and giving us information. You're definitely one of the sources I go to when I want to discuss weapons mechanics, especially. That is something you're very strong at talking about, and we do appreciate your point of view on Battlefield. So again, thank you for coming out, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it. We're signing off. We'll see you later.